Hey, happy Friday. The outlook for DevOps today is cloudy with a chance of AI and some heavy CI/CD. You're watching Techstrong, gang. Hi, everyone. Alan Schimmel, Techstrong here for Techstrong, gang. Wow, it's Friday. It just seems like yesterday was Monday and today's Friday, and it's not because we record these a week at a time. It's just that kind of crazy week. We've got a lot to go over, including some new DevOps reports and research by one of my favorite DevOps analysts in the world. Some new Java. Can Java be 25, 24? I don't know. It seems like it's been around that long. And we've got a little Star Wars, May the Droids Be With You. All kinds of good stuff. Good people to talk about it with. Let me introduce you to our gang members today. We're going out west again to start things off with our Silicon Valley contingent, the king and queen of the valley. We've got Lisa Martin. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm great, Alan. Great to be here.
Okay. And the king, Jon Swartz, our Silicon Valley editor. Hey, John, how are you doing?
It's good to be here. Happy to be here. Busy week again.
Yep. So what's the sweatshirt today?
Oh,
we can't really see it.
California Golden Seals. Do you know much about the history of that team?
Sure.
NHL?
California Golden Seals.
You remember who owned them?
Goalie.
Yes.
Well, I used to play hockey. I didn't play hockey.
So
I watched hockey.
They were an expansion team in 1967, I believe, along with the Flyers and Penguins, etc. And they were owned by Charlie Finley.
Yes, they were. They had the same A's colors, gold and green.
You just stole my thunder. Exactly. They were terrible. They were the opposite of the A's, but they were an interesting team. I got to see them play when I was a kid.
Didn't they moved to Vancouver and they became the Vancouver Canucks?
Cleveland. They became the Cleveland Barons, I believe. And then
the Cleveland Barons.
That was merged with the Minnesota North Stars, if you remember them. Anyway, it's a long complicated history. And it was they played in the Oakland Coliseum when the A's and the Raiders and the Warriors were
I remember we're all old enough to remember. I did play hockey. I played roller hockey. I was a goalie. And what I did is we used to have those ball bearing kind of wheels, and I smashed them square so they didn't roll. And I could just walk. And as a goalie, I didn't have to walk too far. So I very rarely fell. And I was a good goalie like that.
Nice.
Anyway, moving on to Colorado. We've got our Futurum VP Research DevOps, Mitch Ashley. Hey, Mitchell, we've got full-on guitars today. You changed the angle there.
Yeah, we're getting a little the upshot on the guitars. By the way, the only seals we have in Colorado are the seals on mason jars we use for canning vegetables and fruits. So that's as close
I would imagine that's what a seal means to you. Okay, I guess that's why it's so regional. Speaking of regional, let's go to a different region. Representing the Northeast, batting left-handed, throwing right, getting ready for baseball season, Chief Content Officer Mike Fazard. Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm good. 1 week to opening day, 3:00 Thursday. Next.
Yes, it is. Actually, so the game's going on in Japan now. They're still preseason.
Yeah, those are regular season. The Dodgers are 2-0.
Yeah.
They might take a week off or so to recover from Japan. But yeah, everybody else starts on the 27th, right?
Oh, okay. Very cool. Very cool. Huh. Well, I could talk baseball more, but we've already got to get going here. Mike, we've got some new research coming out of our friends from Futurum. What's going on?
Yeah, the research is on what's happening with DevOps in general. And there's actually two reports. One is kind of a survey. The other one is a market analysis where we're seeing, I think the number was a 9% compound annual growth rate for the next few years on DevOps tools and platforms. Mitch, I'm going to let you dive into it. But, we've heard all this noise over the years about DevOps, especially in the last two or so. And yet, looking at the data, things look pretty vibrant.
It's interesting, it's kind of once things have been around for a while, you say, well, is that sort of passe or, what's really happening with it? And as you mentioned, we did both. We have our own market analysis of growth of the market, 9+% CAGR over the next several years. But we also correlate that to buyer decision maker data. So we have a very comprehensive, not just looking at DevOps, but really across the entire software development lifecycle, considering DevOps and Agile, but also software development, platform engineering, testing, application security, AI ops, things like that, IT ops. So let's kind of think about the whole life cycle. And we had about 855 responses to this. I'm not going to quote you all the numbers from it because you have a really great article on devops.com, and I'll be having some more stuff come out. But the themes of it are, when it comes to DevOps, is we have very high levels of people who see themselves in the kind of 3/4 of the game, if you want to think of a football game, or in the fourth quarter of kind of very mastering DevOps, or in the, standardizing it across the organization. Over half of the respondents. And very few, it's like 14%, said they were in the beginning stages. So we're in a pretty far down the maturity stages. The interesting thing is we kind of divided the analysis up into people who were doing DevOps, who were doing development, people who were doing platform engineering. When we asked the platform engineering folks, they weren't quite that far along, but not too far behind. They saw themselves as pretty mature in their platform engineering efforts, probably because they were doing some of that stuff before. Maybe they're getting more attention and funding to that. A couple of other interesting things is we had both 41, 43% range of people both in platform engineering and in DevOps and in development saying that they're using AI as part of an aid to their tools. Now, that can mean a lot of different things. Could mean we're using Cursor, could mean they're just using ChatGPT to do code lookup or whatever, or get ideas for code. There's a wide range of things, but the fact that, almost half, close to half, are saying that they are using AI today. And the last thing I'll kind of add to that is the two biggest, well, I have my budget for 2025, but I'm planning to spend even more this year and even more in 2026, software security and AI. So those are the key themes coming out of this. And nowhere really did we see, well, I'm cutting back in these areas. Almost all of it was kind of full steam ahead. And this was late 2024, early 2025 data. So we're not, we're not talking sometime last year. This is pretty recent stuff.
Interesting stuff. So I'm not surprised at the maturity findings, Mitch. I think that's what we've been seeing at DevOps.com now for a couple of years, is that DevOps certainly crossed the chasm, certainly penetrated that, 35% of the early 35% of the mainstream, right? And is clearly going after the other 35%, the second half of the mainstream, if you will. What I am pleasantly surprised, 41% plan to use AI with it, right? That shows you, I think, almost half of folks are going to be, trying to use AI in their software development pipelines. I think the other thing is, though, that as part of this DevOps maturation, we've seen DevOps, General Douglas MacArthur said, old software never dies, it just fades into the woodwork.
I remember that.
Oh, no, he didn't really say that, did he? But he said something like that. But
he was up to his ankles in water on a beach, right?
Yeah. Trying to figure out a CI/CD pipeline,
right, or something.
And I don't know what was in that pipe. But anyway, DevOps has kind of gone into the woodwork itself, so to speak, along with things like ITSM, along with things like Agile, which is kind of the precursor, right? Agile is 25 years old. And so, and then you have new things like platform engineering, which is really, still very closely aligned. It doesn't replace DevOps. It works alongside it. And so you have things and other new things like SRE maybe and stuff like this. So cloud native, I should mention as well. So you have this whole ecosystem of frameworks and ways of doing things and so forth. And DevOps has taken its place. Kind of like when you look up at the stars, right? And you see all the past rulers of Pride Rock, and DevOps is up there. So
it is, and interesting too, Alan. Couple other thoughts. One is when we asked, so what do you see is the most important technology or investment areas to invest in to getting software into production faster, more consistently? Top of the list, the top things were Gen AI, AI ML for DevOps and test, and also software security was up there at the very top. So even looking at just kind of what are you using, what are you spending, what do you see as critical, you oftentimes you look at different ways of analyzing those questions. So you kind of triangulate, are we saying the same thing? It's very consistent. And these are decision makers, these are buyers, and these aren't, just folks reading about it on Udemy or something, taking a course on it.
Mitch, I'd love to get your opinion on this, because when I talk to people, I get two divergent points of view. One says that with the rise of AI coding tools, the pipelines we have are too brittle and we're going to need to replace all our DevOps platforms to accommodate for that volume of code. The other says that AI agents will just pull the data from all the existing platforms, and the AI agents will manage in those workflows without having to replace any of the DevOps platforms. So I don't know what your sense of how that's going to play out, but right now I can line up 20 people and they'll split evenly on that conversation.
Well, I think there's multiple trajectories. One is moving to platform solutions that kind of have a lot of the pre-integration done for you instead of development teams being in the tools integration business. That's one path of helping to reduce that problem. Another, and it is an issue, especially around CI/CD, because CI/CD sounds like one thing, but if you really understand what's going inside of it, it could be 50 or 100 different types of CI/CD pipelines going on for different apps, different versions of apps, all kinds of things. So the complexity in that is very high. And oftentimes there's a few folks that will touch it to go resolve it, because it does take some real skill to do that. There's a belief that we can put AI onto that task, at least to analyze it and give us more people accessible to be able to resolve issues with CI/CD, with agentic, then maybe starting to address it. The kind of wild card factor is now we have a whole different path of doing development, whether it's through Cursor or, Gemini code or whatever your latest flavor of the day of generating code through natural language as opposed to writing it. And how does that flow through into, a DevOps? So in a way, we're making it more complex, as we always do. Kind of things get more complex over time. But AI is one of the potential solutions for it. But I think there's others. Platforms are definitely a part of that.
Hey guys, I just want to mention, Mitch, this report is available via devops.com. We have an article on there with links. And if you go to futurumgroup.com under research, it's there. And there's also been a huge refresh in the Futurum Intelligence portal that incorporates a lot of this and some other DevOps research, Mitchell, that you have spearheaded. And if you're not familiar with the Futurum Intelligence portal, go check it out. It's actually a really, really nifty tool if you want to stay on top, depending what you want to stay on top of.
Like data, that's the place to go. We can do all kinds of analysis.
Good stuff. All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back here. We're going to talk about Java. Nothing new in Java, is there? Stay tuned. You're watching Techstrong, gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey, folks, we're back and we're talking about Java. They've got a new edition, I think is number 24. And this one is being driven largely by Oracle, but it has everything in it from, I don't know, post quantum cryptography support to AI capabilities. And it looks like, Java, the venerable language, we're using that word again, is getting a significant update. And Oracle seems to be driving this despite the fact that Java was supposed to be this whole open source community thing. So, Lisa, I know you're out on the West Coast, but is Java cool yet?
I think it is. It's hard to believe it's almost 30. When I was doing research on this, I thought, really 30? And the scary, I think it's what's scarier is I can remember 30 years ago, and it was it doesn't seem like it was that long ago. But yeah, their event Java 1 2025 up the shore here in Redwood Shores, they announced the availability of Java 24, the latest version. Reportedly, some of the things they talked about in the press release, thousands of improvements, they said, to help developers really maximize their productivity and drive innovation. We just talked about the DevOps momentum going on that Futurum is seeing. And that's what organizations of every industry want, is to accelerate that business growth. The pedal is to the metal. And it really, I think what we're seeing from Java is that it's continuing to really expand its tool set to meet developers where they are, their evolving needs. And I think, considering we just talked about the DevOps momentum and the pedal is to the metal, I think this is a good thing.
Absolutely. Who remembers the little Java logo caricature, the little black and white guy looked like a Star Trek kind of thing, energy wave or whatever that really is in Star Trek world. And of course, look, if you're going to call out Java being 30, you got to pay homage to Sun, right? I mean, for those of us of a certain age, what a golden era of computing Sun ushered in with Solaris and Java and Spark servers and all of the great innovations that came out of there. It's interesting. Oracle or Java is the language Oracle loves to hate or hates to love. I don't know, but they keep improving it. And excuse me. This one really does seem to be a major upgrade, right? You've got AI integration in here. You've got post-quantum cryptography, a little early, certainly, though. Look, we're hearing so much quantum stuff. I'm looking for quantum in 2026. And of course, developer experience tools, which has always been at the heart of Java. The other interesting thing is, we go on here and we argue whether, his line is correct in letting us in pushing Rust over C# for kernel. And what's the latest, greatest languages we're using? And do we really care about languages? But you know what? 30 years later, Java still rocks and rules the roost, right? I mean, is there any language that is used more today? I mean, it's a lot more of a fragmented world in terms of languages than it was, let's say, 30 years ago. But it's still a dominant force. You can't kill this beast.
That's just what's so remarkable about it. 30 years later, it's still relevant. And then they really did do a push. I mean, I talked to an executive at Oracle about this. And the only unfortunate thing is that they made the announcement the same time as NVIDIA in the monster conference that they had. But kudos to them for keeping this alive and making it relevant and adapting, which is something that Oracle has to do, as well as companies like Salesforce and C3. They've just got to continue to foster and move along.
Mitch, it seems like the appetite for learning new programming languages is not all that high, despite the fact that there's more of them than ever. But if you go into your average enterprise, it's Java, Java, Java.
Well, a really good point. There's such an embedded base of Java, right? That's part of one of the kind of like DevOps, right? It's embedded within the organizations, right? Once you start developing applications in Java, you're going to be using Java for a long time. And, you have to remember when Java was introduced, it was very revolutionary because that was the days of the languages were things like C and C# and C++ and really, more complicated languages to learn And Java was seen as much easier, though it has its own complexities too. But I think the support from Oracle, you called out a couple things, Alan and Lisa, about what they announced. I think one of the big things too is the backward compatibility to versions of Java itself that are included in this new version, because that's always the hassle as things mature and mature and mature. You get bigger and bigger embedded base of code of different versions of things. Some things get sunset or grandfathered, whatever, and it's hard to upgrade. That's that technical debt. And so I think them by investing and trying to give as much backward compatibility as they could, something's embedded in our software stack when the people who are talking about app modernization are talking about how do we migrate from Java to something else. And that's part of that conversation too. So it's not going anywhere. It's going to be with us for a long time.
I think from a marketing perspective, Jon, you nailed it. It's relevance. It's 30 years later, it's still relevant. And one of the things that they did here, I think, again, from that marketing lens, is they really nailed what is important to their target audience, which is developers. They're really working on improving the onboarding experience, making this kind of paving this on-ramp, as they said. And so I think they're really getting to maintaining a community that's healthier and healthier. The ecosystem is there, but getting these developers onboarded much more easily is an A+.
Remember, Alan, we all thought Java was going to be dead when Oracle took it. We thought, that's the end of Java.
Everybody, exactly.
I would just like to point out that everybody on this call has been doing this for longer than 30 years and is hopefully still relevant. So,
well, that's debatable in my case, but
I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. I try to stay relevant, but I'm out here quoting Douglas MacArthur. Who the heck knows who he is out there? So anyway, all good. Happy birthday to Java. And good to see it out there and thriving and staying current. And I'm glad to see post-quantum cryptography being used. Right? We're going to need it. All right, we're going to come back and do our C block in right after this break. And I'm not sure if those are the droids we're looking for.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey folks, as Jon alluded to earlier, yes, there's been this massive conference involving NVIDIA all week long. And one of the things that came out was Disney and Google DeepMind and NVIDIA are going to go build some actual droids, the ones from Star Wars. And you go to the amusement park there and you'll be able to interact with these actual droids, whether it's R2-D2 or not. I don't know. Probably. We'll see. But Jon, I'm telling you, this is a conspiracy right now. And here's how I'm viewing this thing, right? I get dragged to the amusement park. The kids drag me into the gift shop, and the next thing you know, I'm taking home droids, and that's how they get into my house.
It's like you are channeling George Lucas. You're channeling Steven Spielberg. It was always about the merchandising and the marketing. In addition to great movies and great creative content, it was also about that's where the real money comes. And I think beginning next year, we're going to see these Star Wars inspired BDX droids at theme parks for Disney. That's the plan, at least. There's a guy named Kyle Laughlin, who's the senior VP of, it's called Walt Disney Engineering Research and Development. And he basically said the BDX droids are just the beginning. They're committed to bringing more characters to life in ways the world hasn't seen before. And that's the plan. And in fact, I think at South by Southwest, there was a demo of one of these prototypes that was shown. I saw a video of it. It was actually pretty interesting. But again, these are entertainment robots. And I think we're going to see various iterations of different types of not just droids, but animals. In the same story, I mentioned this new dog that's being developed in Europe called Luna. that can be trained. It's very strange. There's also at UC Berkeley, there's a robotic squirrel that's being developed that can leap and land on ledges. So this is the
His
world
name's
we're
not
in.
Rocky, is he?
No, there might be a Bullwinkle in the future, but
Right, he has a moose friend.
yes, he does.
I wonder if the dog will chase the squirrel. That's what happens in our.
You know what? They should have developed that. They should have developed the Rocky robot at What's the Matter You, right? Not Berkeley.
Yeah, that would have worked.
But in any event, it's a very strange.
Oh,
world.
John, that was.
I got that from my brother.
I'll give you a few bonus points. All right.
Okay, thank you. This is like an ESPN show, right? Pardon the interruption. But anyway, that's where Disney's going. And Jensen, it's really weird. He made this presentation in the midst of a 90-minute fire hose of news. So it didn't really get a lot of. They got coverage. I mean, obviously we wrote about it and others wrote about it, but he kind of like tucked it into this larger presentation. And I wish he kind of spent a little bit more time with it. There was also maybe the reason why he didn't spend more time was there's a bit of a glitch during the demo. So that could have explained it, but Brave New World.
So, Alan, will Paramount respond with Commander Data as a droid? Is that where this is going to go?
We're scratching the surface. First of all, let me say this, and I'm speaking on behalf of Mitchell and myself. I can't wait to go buy one. All right? I guarantee you I am buying it as soon as they're out. I'd like a CP3 more than R2 at first, but I'll take anything they got. And then, you know it's Disney. Who doesn't want to buy a princess? Right, for your little girl, her own Snow White or Cinderella or any of the princesses. But let's go. And why stop at Disney? Why can't we get Data? And why do we have to get droids? Make them animals, make them anything.
So a little secret. I've got my agentic AI agents already on the task, and they are already cornering the market on all the supply coming out of China, where these are being.
Well, no, there's going to be a huge tariff on those. Huge tariff.
Oh, geez.
Oh no.
Do you think that
Bob seriously,
Iger, Bob Iger his eyes must be lighting up at the prospect of this, whoever becomes the CEO of Disney eventually. I mean, because they've been struggling with the theme parks, they're overpriced, they've had issues with weather, etc. But this is an opportunity to kind of build a new product line, a new monetize something. And maybe they do it ironically through robotics. I don't know.
One of the things that stuck out to me is I was just on iHeartRadio an hour or so ago talking about giving them kind of an update of what, this big AI conference in Silicon Valley is all about with GTC. And I talked about the humanoid robots, and there in the consumer space, there's a lot of fear of what a humanoid robot actually is. So I wonder, when I saw this partnership with Walt Disney and Google and NVIDIA, is this going to help start to get the general population more comfortable with robots and show how they're able to be used from an entertainment perspective? I think some of the fears out there might be dialed down by something like this.
Yes.
Like a kind of cute and cuddly approach versus they're not going to steal your jobs. They're going to entertain you. They're going to be your friend. Like when I went to Carnegie Mellon, we had the humanoid robot there. It was a crude implementation, but nonetheless, it had a personality, and almost felt as if it was another person in the room. And it had a bit of a little bit of weird, I hate to say this, but charisma, and it reacted to you. And I think that is, Lisa, you're right. That is part of probably the mindset.
I got one.
You got one too. We're all getting out our droid toys.
Okay, Mitch. Pre-tariff right here. But come on, this is a no-brainer. Will this be the killer app for AI?
Oh, it could be.
Or recreational robots, and it'll grow from there, right? Because today the robot will do stupid tricks, but tomorrow the robot will continue to get smarter and start doing your homework with you and everything.
Do your laundry for you, do the dishes, they'll set up the table. Yeah,
there you
might
go.
be a little backroom betting on two robots having a battle. You never know.
Ooh. Spoken like a real Bronx guy right there, man. That never crossed my mind. What was that? What was that movie? Not
Rock'em Sock'em Robots will become.
No. Yeah, well, that would be pretty cool. Crazy. Anyway, hey, what a great time to be around. We'll put, what's his name again? That's not R2D.
DBA.
DBA, right? We'll put him to the side for now.
Whoever it is.
I've had him sitting here all this time. He wasn't smart enough. Now I could put a chip in there. Anyway, what a great story. What a great way to end our Friday on Techstrong, gang. We wish you guys having a great weekend. There's a lot going on in the world this weekend. You know, a lot of us are starting to get a little better weather right now. You know, April is coming. So good stuff all around. We have a full Techstrong TV lineup, of course, following our gang show today. So do check that out. Mitch, congratulations on this DevOps research, by the way. That was a nice piece of work there.
Thank you very much. A lot of folks contributed and helped make that happen. So thanks to the team, everybody.
Yep. Excellent stuff. But for now, on behalf of our gang and all of us here at Techstrong, have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you Monday. We're out.